Akhtab, and this is part 2 of reading, this is chapter 2 of Ghoul Friends, Who's That Ghoul Friend? And while I do this, you're going to watch me gem by number. Okay, so chapter 2. In all my years, I have never seen such beauty and fine craftsmanship, Rochelle babbled, her eyes glazed over with wonder as the others barreled into the room behind her. In the name of flora and fauna, you scared me, Venus huffed as she and the others blew out their candles. You couldn't just have said that the spider ghoul wasn't here or that you were okay. Wow, this place is fantastic, Rebecca proclaimed loudly, her hazel eyes widened to take in the sights. Dangling from exposed beams, an array of webbed lantern bathed the room in the warm candlelight. Small, delicately crafted snowflakes decorated the walls, creating both a wondrous and wintry effect. In smack dab in the middle of the room was a fluffy banana-shaped hammock, which seemed to invite all who saw it to take a nap. Long and billowy curtains, a tightly knit rug, and a wardrobe filled with the rest of enchanting loft-like space. This ghoul is clearly an incredible talent, an absolute genius, Rochelle marveled, just thinking what Claudine could create with the material. Silky maned werewolf Claudine Wolf-maned was the school's foremost designer, not to mention the latest winner of the prestigious Monetella Ghostier Fashion Fellowship. Hello, Venus exclaimed with palpable irritation. The spider ghoul's also working with Miss Flapper and most likely involved with the headmistress Bloodgood's kidnapping. Venus is right. Whether she's talented or not shouldn't change anything. Sigh muttered in agreement. Boolala, I cannot believe I allowed myself to be swayed by finely woven fabric and captively designs. The fact that she created the beautiful space is completely irrelevant, Rochelle admitted, with a hint of embarrassment. The granite ghoul then lowered her head and silently smarted over her ability to be distracted at such a turbulent time. It was behavior not only become of the gargoyle, but downright irresponsible. After all, Headmistress Bloodgood was missing, and what could be more important than that? Well, maybe a few things, but certainly not fabric. Someone's got a bit of a glove addiction, Venus surmised as she looked through the spider ghoul's wardrobe for clues. In fairness, she does have 6 hands, Cy responded as he pulled back the floor-to-ceiling curtains and looked at the small window at Monster High's front lawn. The storm seems to have passed, so hopefully the power will be back on soon. Thank heavens. I can only imagine the nimbling Penny and Ruse are being subjected to by Chewy. That plant can barely see even when the lights are on, Rebecca babbled to her knees as her knees began to squeak. What can I say? He's gotten instability, appetite, Jesus, and poor vision. Admittedly, it's not the best combination, Venus replied. Oh, and Rebecca, I think it may be time for an oil change at Grindin' Gears, unless, of course, you like sounding like an old furnace. An old furnace? Heavens to Betsy, what could be worse? Being dissembled again, sharing a toothbrush with a troll, having a piano land on your foot, sharing a hairbrush with a troll, rust, and empty boiler, Rochelle answered seriously and then paused. You weren't actually asking, were you? No, but I will appreciate the information. It helps keep things in perspective, Rebecca responded, stifling laughter. Still standing in front of the small window, Cy spotted someone in the far end of the ledge. It appeared to be a crumpled receipt, but he couldn't say for sure. Rather surprisingly, given the sheer size of their eyes, Cyclopses had notoriously poor vision. In fact, according to the encyclopedia, the island of Cyclops strictly forbids the inhabitant to drive motorized vehicles, use industrial machinery, or act as eyewitnesses in legal proceedings. Curious, Cy stepped closer to the far of the window sill, which brought a crumpled photograph of a castle into focus. The large stone fortress with Gothic arches, turrets, and a moat instantly ignited a memory in the one-eyed boy earlier that semester. In Monastery, the class had studied architecture of the old world and lands across the ocean, and this was definitely it. There simply weren't buildings like this in the New World, or as it was informally known as Boo World. After staring at the photograph for a few seconds, Cy turned it over and saw a clumsily scrawled message. Widona. Never forget where you come from or whom you serve. Ghouls, I think you're going to want to see this, Cy stated ominously, instantly inciting the interest of Rebecca, Rochelle, and Venus, who hurried over to check out the photograph. Widona. Is that how you say her name? Anyways, in is her name, Rochelle muttered while reading the back of the picture. Well, it certainly explains all the monogrammed W's in her clothes. Never forget where you come from or whom you serve, Rebecca repeated aloud. I don't like the sound of that, unless, of course, she's a waitress. Facts, Venus said with a sigh. Wishful thinking, Rebecca muttered. You could say that, Venus replied. Did anyone notice there's a panel missing from the wall? Rochelle asked as she crossed the room and peered inside the exposed crawl space. Now we know who visited Miss Flapper, Venus stated, referring to the ghoul they heard tripsing across the ceiling and then descending into Miss Flapper's room. In light of the message of the photograph, I think it's wise we finish searching the room and get out of here as soon as possible. It's our advantage with that Widona, Madame Flapper, and whomever they're serving doesn't know we're on to them, Rochelle explained to the others. I agree. Having them out on our tails will only make finding Headmistress Bloodgood more difficult, Cy remarked. Well, there's nowhere left to look anyways, except maybe under the carpet, Venus said as she bent down and pushed back the rug. The faint sound of scuffling began from the crawl space, and though it was soft and muffled noise, it instantly grabbed the foursome's attention. Adrenaline rushed through their bodies as they exchanged tense expressions. Venus immediately put back the rug and tried to stand, but she couldn't. One of the thick green vines that grew off her arms were wedged between the floorboard. I'm stuck, Venus hissed, frantically pulling at her vines. Plant down, Rebecca cried in alarm, steam pouring from her nostrils. Kiss this, French. Steam and webs do not mix, or rather, when they do, it becomes like glue, Rochelle explained, feverishly tapping her claws against her cheek. Come on, Cy said as he threw his sweater over Rebecca's face to pull her back towards the path of the stairs. We can't leave Venus. We have a no plant left behind policy, Rebecca mumbled from beneath the fabric while the sound of Spider Ghoul approach grew louder. Rochelle's helping her, Cy whispered as the two disappeared from view. Cy Ghoul plant. Venus, you must relax, Rochelle said calmly, attempting to maneuver the vines out from between the two planks of wood. It's hard to relax when I can hear her coming, Venus murmured, as the distinctive scrambling sound from the crawl space continued to increase in volume. Almost got it, Rochelle said through gritted teeth. Seconds later, Rochelle lifted the plank of wood from the floor, freeing Venus's vines, exposing catch of hidden papers. I never thought there could be a upside of getting a vine stuck, but clearly I was wrong, Venus mumbled, a smile creeping across her face. While I admit your vine getting stuck has proven advantages, may I remind you that the Spider Ghoul is just about here, Rochelle whispered, keeping her eyes trained on the crawl space across the room. Venus whipped her head around to look at the opening of the wall, then nodded to Rochelle. You're right, there isn't time to read these papers now. Exactly. Allez, Rochelle said as she gripped Venus's green arm and attempted to stand. Not yet, Venus replied brusquely as they pulled her out her eye coffin and began snapping photos of the documents. More French. We must go right now, Rochelle implored. Widona is just about here. Just a second, I'm almost done. More French. Venus is too late, Rochelle uttered faintly as she heard the distant sound of the creature calling into the room. Venus dropped the papers and silently pushed the floorboard back in place. She then turned towards Rochelle and shook her head as if to say, I'm sorry I didn't listen. For though they were momentarily concealed by the dimness of the room, discovery was only a matter of time. Anxious anticipation overwhelmed the ghouls, leaving them with the tightened chest and mouth as dry as mummies. Rapping after quickly assessing the options, Venus decided to it best. She announced their presence as Winona. However, just as they started to move, Rochelle grabbed her hand and pulled her to the floor. The granite ghoul then draped the long and billowy curtain from the nearby window over them, and though this hidden hiding spot was hardly deaf to faint lighting did wonders for the disguise. After Winona lit a couple of additional candles, Venus and Rochelle were able to catch a glimpse of her albeit through the gauzy curtain, sleek and slender, the pitch-black skin and long flame-colored locks. Winona was a ghoul few could forget, and not simply because she has 6 arms and 6 eyes, 4 of which simply looked like teardrop shapes swathed of red on her forehead. Dressed in black knee-high boots and a slinky web dress dyed in the same shade of her hair, Widona's style was the perfect mixture of strength and femininity. "Where are you?" Winona purred, sending chills up the ghoul's spine. "There's no point in hiding. I know you're in here." Venus and Rochelle held their breaths and closed their eyes, unsure how to handle the situation. How did Winona know they were in the room, but not where they were hiding? Could she smell them? Or was it something else? Was it the spider sense? "You don't want my fangs to fill with venom, do you?" Winona asked in the frighteningly calm manner as she made her way towards the ghouls. "Venom, venom, venom." The word echoed in Venus and Rochelle's mind as she pondered the catastrophic, I don't know how to say that, effects the spider serum could have on both plants and stones. And that is the end of chapter 2. Stay tuned for more.